Greetings, Tim, and welcome back to another TNT POV.
What's going on, Tom? How are you today?
Not too much. I see your scarf. It must be cold up there in your office.
Yeah, I'm in theory. The
Yeah,
cold is coming in from Canada and
yeah.
bringing snow with it across the lake.
Well, that always happens. It's
It's true,
very
part of the
cold here. We
charm,
don't get as much snow, but we do see our degrees of cold temperatures. But, whatever that happens to be.
is what it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't it
Well,
feel like it's just getting warmer year after year, though? Maybe we'll do that later.
I don't know. Maybe not. It depends year to year. I mean, I did go to Texas that one time when it was the record cold temperatures. I brought 17-degree weather to Texas with me, which is I've been to Texas. That ain't normal.
You should have stayed out of Texas, man. That's not your place.
Well, I mean, I had a conference down there, and it was an interesting trip.
Did you buy a cowboy hat?
No, I don't. I don't have the cowboy
Should have
hat.
bought a cowboy hat. You were
Well,
in Texas.
Well, I know, but
Extra
I had
big
enough
one.
of Texas. I had enough of Texas, and I was in Austin. It doesn't quite count.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, you had to drive through Texas. It takes a day to drive to Texas and a day to drive through Texas. If you've ever been there, it's like it literally is more time driving through. Anyway, today we're gonna be talking about Covidiots. Are we ready to talk about Covidiots?
Well, let's do this. Let's talk Covidiots.
All right. So what's your overall first and foremost take on Covidiots here?
Well, let's see here. Now, I'm going to have to defer to you because you have a toxicology degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So mostly I'm going to have to defer to you as an expert, which I don't even know why I air quoted because technically speaking, you are an expert.
Yeah, I mean, I have been in a medical lab more recently than Fauci. We'll put it that way.
Well, you've been in a medical lab far more recently than me, which is never. So, that being said, though, here's what I know, or here's what at least I think I know. There's a communicable disease.
Okay.
It's able to rip through populations simply because of how far we can get these days on planet Earth within 24 hours. If we look at like the Black Plague, for instance, it had rapid spread along trade routes for the most part. Small little rinky-dink things out of the way didn't get hit nearly as hard, if at all. But now we can be anywhere on planet Earth in 24 hours, basically. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could throw somebody out of an airplane and land them on the Himalayas with a parachute and a snowboard. But
Yeah.
basically we can get anywhere on this planet. And that means any new disease that comes up with us can travel those same routes because they're traveling, well, inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know it spreads somewhat easily. It's not as rough as measles, for example. Probably not even, it's not even close to as bad as the plague. Plague, come on. That killed what, a quarter of the population? Or was it?
Yes.
I can't remember. I think it was about a quarter of the population.
Between 25 and 30%.
Yeah, well, that's staggering when the population is only in the millions, not billions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a large number. So we're not talking plague here, but we are talking something that can wipe out elderly people easier than it can infect a young adult such as you and I, or even children for that matter, which don't seem to be getting hit quite as hard, probably because they haven't been eating, McDonald's all their life.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mostly because they haven't been eating McDonald's for 40 years of their life. That being said, though, it's a dangerous disease, but it's not like it's not a plague. It's not the plague.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from all of that, people are scared. And rightfully so. We don't have all the information. And what information that we do have is seemingly politicized in one way or another. And that's just such a downer for our time, for our age, for our scientific advancements, for all of our ability to access information. A lot of that information is flawed.
Yeah. So,
and not necessarily even
a
just
little bit more.
flawed, but manipulated.
Yeah, possibly. I have been spending time in the medical literature since this had started, and like I just saw one. I just read it like 2 weeks ago, and we had planned to do this discussion, and I pulled in something from CDC, and they're like using two articles. They're like, we need to stop the spread of disease, and here's two articles that they referenced. And so I downloaded those articles and I read them today, and one of them was back in April, and it was a death had occurred in a obscure village with less than 5,000 people in Italy, and they locked the whole village down. And it was a scientific report back early days of all of this. The second one was literally a model. Now, let's talk about what happened in March versus what's happening now. Back in March, we didn't know exactly what we were dealing with, and a lot of governments like, hey, let's just shut down for a little bit of time. And I'm okay with that happening in March because we didn't know exactly what we were dealing with. The problem is that now we have actual data, and we don't need to be relying on models, which every single model that we have seen has been completely wrong. There's not a single model that has been proposed by the scientific community that has been correct. Now, some of them want to...
wrong.
What's that?
Why do you think it is so wrong?
There's a couple of factors. One of them is the first early model that most countries lobbed onto was a political organization, not a scientific organization. And they were a group out of UK, and I forget their name. And even the director of that, he was kind of like, ostracized because while he was advocating everybody get locked down, he was out screwing his mistress, leaving his wife at home. And so, you get that kind of stuff. Not that has any bearing on science, but that guy's done a lot of modeling. He is a climate change modeling. And if you follow any of the more tinfoil hatty areas of this, then you might have seen some things with the World Economic Forum. Everything that they've wanted to do because of climate control or climate change, they're trying to do now because of COVID, which is like very interesting. Well, the same people that modeled all the climate control stuff, the planet is going to die in, like 5 years if we don't act now. That's the same group that did all the coronavirus stuff.
Which group is that?
I forget.
I've been seeing.
I forget.
I'm trying to curb. Anytime I say stuff, what I meant was the other S word. Most of the stuff that I've been reading, I'm trying to curb myself. I have kids. They're starting to pick up words. I don't want them to talk like me.
I know, right? Good luck.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't help when mom's around them. I'm like, Mom, she knows how to say things now.
Yeah. Well, we learned from the best, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. But basically, I mean, most of the stuff that I'm reading are looking at much wider ranges than that. But that's climate change. That's not COVID. And even if the people who are modeling the same things after COVID for climate change, well, then maybe we need to pay these guys a little less.
Yeah, and I'm going to be working on a video for my other channel about this general stuff. But let me move on to the next point I wanted to make. The two areas that we were deeply concerned about early on were Italy and New York City. Those were really the big ones that caused everybody to look at it and say, "Oh, let's shut down."
They're densely populated.
However, well, it's not. It's actually densely population doesn't have anything to do with it, because things like Stockholm are actually more densely populated, and they had very little comparatively. And so
what's their population?
Well, hold on. Let me get into these guys first here. So when we saw what was going on in Italy, we got some articles about it. And then once the articles came out, and I didn't pull them up for our discussion here, but I did a deeper analysis on these elsewhere. But they were from very prestigious journals looking at the actual data. And then when all the data came in and we looked at it and go, oh, it's just people who've already been diagnosed with Alzheimer's who are dying. Sure, we don't want anybody to die. But what's happened is there has been a major shift. And rather than people dying of heart disease or dying of cancer or dying of Alzheimer's or dying of whatever else, they're just marking as COVID deaths. And this is significant because by the end of all of this, if this major plague is going around killing everybody left, right, and center, we should see a massive spike in the data, in the number of deaths, right?
Right.
And the fact is we don't see any of that. I have the article pulled up here. Where is it at? Okay, so this is one of the articles. This is from PG Media.
Your camera just turned off. There we go.
Yeah, from PG Media there. On this article here, they pulled up the death rates and death rates per day, going back all the way down. This is data from CDC and from National Centers for Health Statistics. So all the way back to 2010, the average deaths per day, 6,763. Top 3 causes: heart disease, cancer, chronic lung. 11, you can see the numbers, the deaths per day goes up because the population's going up.
Population goes up, yeah.
Correct. So notice that the life expectancy stays about the same. It had a little bit of a peak there, 2012 to 2015. Then I guess, 2016, 17, more people died of heart attacks when Trump was in the office or something, right? So death rate went down a little bit.
To be fair,
unintentional
a large
injuries.
section of our population at that point in time,
yeah,
as were boomers. And
and that's kind of what happened. But what we're seeing down here is the total resident deaths. Now, this is still lacking 1 month. So, I'm sorry. This is only lacking half a month. This is data down through December 12th. And total resident deaths is actually decreased by over 200,000 over the previous year. Now, some of this is preliminary data. We may not have every bit of data in, but we have been watching deaths perilously close. What we're seeing is that the deaths per day has not changed. There has not been a massive spike in deaths in 2020.
Like maybe it hasn't changed much, like obviously other than population, but maybe it has changed from... because 2020 is going to be COVID everywhere.
This data.
Say COVID everywhere. It's going to be 7,000 people died of COVID.
Well, that's the problem. And this is 2020 data. So according to the CDC and the National Center for Health Statistics, the total number of deaths has not risen significantly.
Well, the unfortunate thing about statistics is numbers don't lie. But if you manipulate the numbers still don't lie.
Well, that you can do some things with numbers, but these are not statistically manipulated numbers. These are raw numbers pulled out. This is how many deaths per state, how many per day. These are accurate numbers. And this is exactly what we're seeing. So if you look in Pennsylvania, for example, do you know what the number one comorbidity is in Pennsylvania of a death?
The number one what?
The number one comorbidity. When somebody dies of COVID, what is the number one thing that they have?
I'm going to guess heart disease or cancer.
No, it's dementia. No.
Dementia, really?
Yeah, because this is a disease of elderly.
Fair enough.
And if you pull the data, that's kind of what you'll find. So what has happened is we've had this major overreaction. And then governments jump in and they seize control and they don't want to give it up. So we started, let's have 15 days to slow the spread. And now we're on like day 360, and that's not quite that high. That's like day 200, it's like 260 of let's lock everything down and put restrictions on people until we don't see any COVID cases anywhere under the sun.
But at the same time, there were a lot of people that didn't lock down. They didn't wear masks. They refused. Mm-hmm. They did not comply. They did not say, hey, man, here's the best thing that we have, the best tool that are at our disposal right now. And they said, fuck you, I need a haircut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's go ahead and have a look at the rational ground here. These are looking at mask laws. So what we're looking at here is Sweden is the one country that never had anything relating to masks, which, by the way, has that city with great population density, greater than New York. Their spikes were the lowest, their cases were the lowest, and they only had a 7% mask usage rate.
Interesting.
Every place in this thing, this is mask mandates. Every single place, mask mandate, cases go up. There's Oregon, here's Kansas, Nevada, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico. That's the one we just looked at. West Virginia, Massachusetts. The other interesting place to look at is New York versus, here's New York, by the way. They had the hugest cases. In fact, New York itself, just New York, has so many cases that pulling them away from the United States, they are the, I think, number 3 deaths in the world. And of course, we're all praising that guy and kissing his butt, saying he did it right. No, he didn't. He sent sick people into nursing homes and caused more death than anybody. Here's California is an interesting one because California and New York, but California has been more dystopian than anybody. They have issued mask mandates. They've said you can't go anywhere. They've locked down businesses. They've set curfews. It's not doing anything. Here is... which one's this one? This is all United States. Anywhere where there's a mask mandate, cases are always higher than no mask mandate.
Bizarre.
No, it's not bizarre. I'll get into why it's not bizarre in a minute. There's actually a scientific reason. And I think, okay, here's the one. This is from Twitter, same group doing these. This is the California versus Florida, because of course you're hearing that Florida is just a death trap and oh my God, we're all going to kill everybody because they're opening up and they have no cause for anything. This is Florida versus California. Now understand, Florida has a higher per capita elderly population.
Right.
They have a very similar population density. They have, for the most part, a fairly similar climate. Florida, very few ever
Southern
Restrictions.
California.
What's that?
No, Southern California.
Maybe, but Northern California is not major significant.
Northern California is pretty close to
but it's not that bad.
Latitude.
Yeah, but it is close to our latitude, but the climate is still very different. Okay, our latitude in California, there's palm trees. All right, I spent a lot of time in California. There's palm trees in California at our latitude. It doesn't have as much to do with the latitude. It has to do with where the mountains are, the ocean, and things like that. Their climate is on average warmer. Okay, so in Florida, where they're saying, oh, they're asking for trouble because they've removed most restrictions, they didn't spike nearly as much as California did, who's been locked down and closed, and they're throwing people in jail for having parties. All right. And this is the type of data we're looking at. Everywhere mask mandates are put into effect, cases go up. Now, there's a very rational explanation for this. And the reason is, now it's a multifactored. The first big factor is people don't wear masks right. We're telling people wear a mask, so they're throwing on a mask, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off. You're basically collecting viruses, bacteria, germs, and other stuff in this mask, taking it off. Now that stuff's on your hands. Now you're opening doors, closing doors. You're actually spreading the infection. This is why infections go up everywhere mask mandates are. Because as more and more people are wearing a mask, we're not wearing them right. Now, does wearing them at all do anything? The answer is actually really no. And that is some of the other studies. So some of the studies we did, this one here from the Annuals of Internal Medicine, this is the only random controlled study of masks in COVID era. And it is consistent with other stuff. So this is in Danish, where they don't have specific mask mandates. So it was the best place to do this type of study. You had a group that you had no compelling reason to wear a mask, and you had a group that said they will wear a mask. Obviously, there's some people are saying, there's issues with the study. There's issues with every study. The biggest issue here is it was self-reported. But that means that self-reported, more people were saying they were wearing a mask than not. The overall result, they had 3,000 participants randomly assigned to wear masks. They had 3,030 wearing masks. 2,294 were in a control group, which meant that they did not have to wear a mask. Of that, 4,800 completed the study. Infections of COVID, they had 42 participants in the mask group, which is 1.8%, and they had 53 in the control, which is 2.1%. And the difference between 1.8 and 2.1% in a 5,000 study is insignificant. So that means, again, minus 1.2 to 0.4 percentage point ratio difference, that basically statistically the same. So here is, in what we would call a community setting, the only random control study of masks, no effect.
Okay.
Now, there's been other studies. This is back before COVID era. This is 2015, randomized control study of cloth masks compared with medical masks. This is, what article is this? I don't remember what journal it is. Can't remember. It's in the medical literature. This one, again, rates of all infectious outcomes were highest in cloth mask arm with a ILI, that's influenza, statistically significantly higher in mask rates compared to the medical mask arm. Cloth masks also had significantly higher rates of influenza compared with the control arm. An analysis by mask use showed influenza and laboratory confirmed viruses. So, I mean, really significantly higher in now this is cloth masks versus medical masks, and then they had a control group. Now, the authors of this study were asked about this in COVID. They're like, yeah, well, the control group, they weren't told to wear one thing or another. But here is your medical mask, cloth mask, control masks. Basically, the masks didn't do anything. They don't do anything in all the studies that we have. They didn't do anything pretty much anywhere they have been tried. So wearing masks and putting on mask mandates actually tends to spread infection rather than slowing the spread of infection.
And you're saying that's because the infection is more or less getting on the masks and people are fucking with their masks and then touching stuff.
That seems to be the biggest factor, because we know in a sterile medical environment, in a surgical environment, the doctor washes up to his elbows, they put on their gown, and then they very carefully put on a surgical mask, and you wear the surgical mask, you don't touch it, you do your surgery, you do your operation, you leave the room, you very carefully take it off, put it into the biohazard bin without touching anything in between, and then you wash up again. That is the type of situation where wearing a mask will work. It's a specific type of mask for a specific type of purpose. We're talking about a community setting. A community setting is never going to be sterile. It doesn't matter if you can train the public all you want.
There's nothing you can do to publicly...
Correct.
No, it's not possible.
Yeah.
It's simply not possible.
Yeah.
You could sanitizer, alcohol, you could set it on fire if you want to. It's not going to stop everything. It's not going to stop spread.
Correct. And so that's really the principle, is that people are overreacting. And a lot of the reason they're overreacting is because they are being fear porned by the media. Why are they doing that? Well, because the media they make a lot of money when they do that. Yeah. They want everybody tied.
They need a sensational headline because nobody's coming to watch the kitten get rescued from the tree, from the fire department. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
It's got to be epic or nobody gives a crap. And that means their advertising dollars go down.
Correct.
But that also puts you into a different point where fabrication and glorification really come into play on the point of media on all sides. So, I mean, you could say on one side they're glorifying wearing a mask, and on the other side they're glorifying not. Now, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Is even a cloth mask better at containing spread, transmitting if you are infected, versus, because this one comes right from your Annals of Internal Medicine. Where is it? It's somewhere closer to the top, where they had no... I'm going to have to paraphrase here because I can't find it right off the top of my head. They couldn't tell. There was a reduction in people wearing masks. There was a reduction in transmission, but they could not figure out if it was because the people who were wearing the masks that were infected were transmitting less, or if the people who were wearing masks that were not sick were actually catching it. Because I would say that the mask isn't going to actually stop you from catching it, but it might prevent you from spreading it quite as much. Even if you sneeze into your arm, that's better than nothing.
Correct. Yeah. So if you are infectious and you are shedding an amount of virus that is needed, first and foremost, the mask, if you're not wearing it correctly, is going to concentrate that. It's a concentration is what you need.
Right.
So it's going to concentrate this on a mask, which is going to get on other surfaces. Now, is that going to catch it in a short-term situation? The answer is yes, it will. So I'm not saying that it won't do that, but now we're getting into the realm of asymptomatic type spread. So is this something that happens in asymptomatic, or is this not something that happens in asymptomatic?
I would say it would have to. Even if you're asymptomatic, you're still carrying it.
Well, the answer to that is actually no. There's some articles that have just come out recently. So this one here is from Nature Communications. So Nature is actually one of the more prestigious articles. Of course, people say, oh, it's from China. That doesn't mean anything. No, it's actually decent science. It's in Nature. It's been peer reviewed. They did a study looking at 9.9 million people. Okay. I think they found like 10 asymptomatic spread. Okay, it just doesn't happen.
Isn't it higher in children though?
No. Children have almost no susceptibility to COVID. They don't seem to pick it up. They don't show symptoms. They don't seem to spread it at all.
Strange.
Yeah.
That's something I read somewhere said no, they were definitely spreading it.
No. There is absolutely zero evidence about that. All right, so here is in figure 2 here. I'm sorry, it was 161. Yep.
One sec. The entire one wrestler on the wrestling team where my wife teaches caught it. Mm-hmm. And then immediately afterwards, every last one of them tested positive.
Okay, there's a couple factors here. Number one, what type of test?
I don't know.
Okay, do you know that these tests that they're using have a 60% false positive rate?
Okay, fair enough.
Number one. Okay. Number two, there's a difference between pre-symptomatic and asymptomatic. But what would be the difference between them? Where did he pick it up, and how did he get identified, and what was actually the cause of spread? These are all good questions to ask. But if one person has it and they're all close-knit on a mat, sweating all over each other, yeah, they're going to pass it quite a bit significantly than me going to Walmart.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Yeah. But nevertheless, let me ask you this.
Why are you doing sports?
How many of those kids are sick?
I don't know.
I am going to throw out a guess.
I have absolutely no idea. I would say probably 1%.
I'm going to throw out a guess and say it's probably 0. That would be my guess. All right. Because that's what the data seems to statistically show. We'll get into that. So here they found asymptomatic positive persons. There's 161. There's 110. So these are with IgM and IgG results. So basically looking at the percentages, they're basically tracking everybody down, and they're finding no spread. They're finding no asymptomatic spread in 9.8 million people. If that was not enough, this one just came out. Was it last week? This week? Last week? Just a couple days ago. This is
This one I skipped ahead a lot because it used a lot of big scientific words, and I don't have the.
Okay, so this is called a meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is a type of science research where they go through and
I scrolled all the way down to where it says discussion.
That's fine.
After a while.
I'm explaining what's going on here. So This is called a meta-analysis. This is where they analyze the different studies in the medical literature looking for the traits, looking for the things. So they looked at 54 different studies, 77,000 participants. And what they found is the average, what is called the secondary attack rate, SAR, which is very poor choice of acronyms for a SARS virus. But they found that it's 16.6% higher than secondary attack rates for, now this one is the original SARS, which was the one a few years ago, and Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome coronavirus.
We called it MERS at the time.
Yeah, so this one's MERS. The Middle East respiratory is MERS. This one was the original SARS. So SARS and MERS. They found that the household rate was 16% higher. Now, that does mean COVID-2 is more infectious, but every time a disease gets more infectious, it becomes less mortal. So it's not as dangerous. And these are common cold family of viruses. Now, what the overarching idea here showed is that if we look down here in the results, they actually had within the households, they had, let's see, I'm not looking for the comparative. Secondary attack rates increased in symptomatic cases was only 18%. So it means that you only have an 18% chance in symptomatic cases. And this is actually just symptomatic cases passing on to people you live with.
Right.
Asymptomatic cases, 0.7%.
So
no asymptomatic spread. Adult contacts was 28%, then child contacts was 16%, spouses was 37%, other family members was 17%. And it seems to spread mostly in houses with fewer people. So the more people you have in your house, the lower chance everybody has of getting it. So this is a big meta-analysis.
The more people you have in your house, the less chance there's of contracting it?
Of each individual person contracting it, because it's statistical odds. So in other words, if you have a bunch of people, so like a friend of mine, I mean, it's very possible I might have gotten the disease. Who knows? Because a friend of mine who's over here all the time, his mother got coronavirus. She had a little cold for a week. And she tested positive. Her husband tested positive. He had no symptoms. She had a cold for a week. He had no symptoms. My friend who comes to my house a couple times a week, he never was bothered getting tested. He never had any signs or symptoms. That's just how it works. Now, did he get it? He lived in a house with two other people who were tested positive.
I would assume he touched something.
Yeah. And he's in my house all the time. It's possible I got it. I don't know. Am I going to go put myself as a cog in the wheel? Hell no.
I have no idea. All I know is I rarely get common cold.
Yeah.
Like it almost never happens to me.
Yeah, there's the one guy who's he does a show on The Blaze. He gets sick every single year, probably because he's a foolish vegetarian and that is not a healthy diet. He gets sick every single year, right? This is the only year he didn't get sick in 20 years when he tested positive for COVID.
Was he social distancing and wearing a mask?
Honestly, with that one, that guy, I think so. I'm not sure.
It almost goes to show that, hey, maybe we can slow the flu down.
Well, hey, we've effectively slowed the flu down because we have almost no flu cases at all. Everyone's got COVID instead. That actually happened around July. I think it was the first week of July 4th, July 7th, when the CDC was putting out data. The COVID numbers for 2 weeks in a row dropped below the threshold for a pandemic. And so to drop the numbers back up, they threw COVID, flu, and pneumonia all in one category to keep it above pandemic levels.
That's insane.
Yeah, you can find that. That's not conspiracy theories type data. That's the type of stuff that's going on. What else do we want to look at here?
Brings me back to the numbers don't lie, but you can fudge the numbers.
Correct. So, that's really that's actually a good point coming into this one here. CBC Denver. The coroner down here in Grant County raises concerns about death of COVID case. It turns out that they had a couple people come in on gunshot wounds. They died of gunshot wounds, and COVID's on the death certificate. When you can figure that one out, let me know.
It was a pre-existing condition, man. There were problems. The bullet was licked before they got shot.
I know, I know, I know. That's. I mean, it's just, you may as well call it. But the problem is that if somebody had a positive test within 30 days, they're automatically added as COVID death in the dashboard.
That's just wrong.
Correct, and that is why a few months, it might have been a month or two back. I think it was maybe 2 months back. If you remember this nonsense coming up, where CDC actually came out and said, "Okay, of all these deaths, would you like to guess the number of deaths that they said were only COVID?"
I'd say 8%.
It was lower than that. It was a grand total of 6,000.
Hell, that's dipping into 1 or 2% territory.
I think it's less than. Now I think that number might be closer to eight or 9 at this point. But that's what I'm talking about, is that we are shooting these numbers up. We're saying everybody's dying of COVID, even though they're not really dying of COVID, because it sells articles. It gives political people their power and their control. And that's really what they want. So let's go ahead and have a look at the actual data. And I've not pulled data today, so we'll have a look at what the data looks like. So we pulled up the CDC demographics. This is actually the people, according to the CDC. Now, again, how many of these people have died of gunshot wounds or are listed as COVID patients? I don't know. But this is actually what it is. And the one I'm not really all that concerned about, death by race and
closer
ethnicity.
to Detroit you get, the numbers are skewed.
What's that?
I said I would say that the closer to Detroit you get, the numbers are skewed.
pretty much. So basically cases are in the red and deaths are in the blue here. And the one I will look at is the age group, because this is the most significant. What we look at is we see this bell curve where the majority of cases are shown between the 18 and 29 down to the 50 to 64. So that's 23, 33, was it 39, 59, 69, 79. That's about 85, it looks like. About 85% of cases are within that bell curve. But notice that 32 plus 27, 50, 60, 70, 80, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% of all of the deaths are not in that group. 80% of all deaths are in the 65 to 74 range, even though that only makes up less than 15% of the cases.
How much of the population does that make up?
What do you mean?
The 64 plus age range.
Actual population numbers. Honestly, I do not know the population numbers, but
99% of Congress.
yeah, we could never mind. I was going to say a fun word, but that would not be a YouTube friendly statement.
Tom, I've already dropped an F-bomb. You're going to have to bleep.
An F-bomb won't cause problems. 1 or 2 of them won't cause problems. But that's the significant point. Look at this, 85%, the total number of cases. And these aren't just like percentages per averages. These are actual numbers. So the actual number of cases, this is a disease of elderly. Now, what do we do in that case? Does that mean that, hey, let's just kill grandma and grandpa? The answer is no. I mean, when my friend's mother had COVID, we skipped church for a week or two because we're like, well, we could be infectious, but, he doesn't generally go anywhere else. I don't generally go anywhere else. And so, we went about our lives, but we skipped church. We didn't go. I skipped the Bible study that week. I skipped the things
I would say
like to do.
Skipping things that require you to be in close proximity with a mass number of people for an extended period of time is a bad idea.
Well,
right now, that's where I'm at with restaurants, movie theaters, bowling alleys, gyms.
Yeah.
Things of that nature.
I'm going to take this
approach. Bars are the worst because drunks don't social distance.
Yeah, there's not a lot of drunks though in the range of people who are getting seriously ill from this disease. And this is why what we need to do is we need to have an approach that's not all or nothing. We need to have an approach that is more geared towards the vulnerable population. Why is it that New York had 40% of all of the deaths in the United States? And if you take the 5 states that did what New York did, that is about 70% of the deaths in the United States.
Sick people to the elderly.
Yes, they did. That's what they did.
Stupid idea.
Yeah, They committed mass murder by doing that. The governors that we are praising for their COVID response sent COVID positive patients into the nursing homes with the vulnerable populations.
Yeah. Okay. Now that gets me to another issue, which just kind of messes with me mentally, is, these are the people that are collecting Social Security, and maybe they wanted them to not pay them.
Well, here's another thought.
That's kind of dark. That's like they did it on purpose.
The person
Either
that
A,
Biden,
they did it on purpose, or B, they did it on complete negligence and not forethought.
I'm not going to say what was in their mind to cause them to do that. But here, if it's any consolation, the chick with the dick moved its mother out of the nursing home before forcing everybody else to accept them. And that would be Rachel Levine if you missed that one. So, yeah.
Whatever she wants to put, he, she, whatever. I don't give a fuck.
Well, okay, here's my point. Here's my point. Don't tell me you're all about the science when you're calling yourself a girl and you got a dick in your pants. Okay?
Yeah,
you can do what you want to do. I don't really care. But don't be telling me that you're all about the science and then you pull your own mother out of a nursing home before sending sick COVID-positive patients into the nursing homes, and that's what caused people to die.
I prefer a vagina over a vagina.
Okay, fair enough.
For the record. That being said, I don't think that's an issue. The pulling her mother out of the nursing home before sending sick people into it, that's merely hypocrisy. But what's swinging or not between your legs shouldn't have effect over your mental faculties.
But here's what I'm saying. Is it known in science what makes you a male?
Yeah.
Okay. Then stop saying it's all about science if you're going to ignore the most fundamentally and oldest known science in the book.
Fair enough.
You can't sit there and say you're all about the science when you're ignoring science.
I will give you that.
Here's the thing.
However,
there is nothing
up in the head.
There is nothing Rachel Levine has done that has been scientific. Did you catch the hot mic moment where they're getting ready for a press release and another person, they got a mask on and you hear Rachel Levine in the distance, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask talking. Oh, I'm just wearing the mask for social theater.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and this is why the governors across all of the states are doing what they're doing.
All of politics is nothing more than social theater.
Correct.
So that rich can line pockets.
And here's my point. All of this COVID nonsense is political. It is not driven by science. If you want to know the best thing to do, we need to completely open society up. Except for elderly, they need the choice. In other words, if you're a teacher and you're 65, 75-year-old teacher, it's time to retire. We're going to pay you early to go retire. Or at least sit out a year or two. But all of these young teachers just out of high school, those teachers in their 20s and in their 30s, maybe even into their 40s, they ain't going to have problems with this. Children certainly don't have problems with this. You need to get society back because what do you need to do? You need to bring in herd immunity among this population that does not die, that does not generally get sick. When this population gets coronavirus and survives, which statistically they will, we will increase herd immunity, and increasing herd immunity is the only way you're going to stop a virus. So if we kept everything completely open and just protected the elderly, that is the best strategy. So what do? Right now, we have to figure out a way to protect the elderly, but still give them a choice. There was a 90-year-old lady up in, I think she's 83 or 90, I forget, up in Toronto. She's like, assisted suicide's legal up there. She's just kill me, doctor. Why? Because I just don't want to live through another lockdown. She's perfectly healthy. She used to walk to the library every day. Well, hey, it was. She's dead. She's dead now because they wanted to issue another lockdown and tell her you can't leave the nursing home. And she's like, no, screw this. Just put me under. And they did. Yeesh. So she died. She didn't have COVID. She didn't have problems. She didn't have health issues. She was going to live for a long time yet. She wanted the choice to go out in society and go to the library and enjoy her life. And we took that from her. Elderly need
from herself.
the
If
choice.
she wasn't going to get sick and die anyway, then she kind of made that decision on her
She
own.
would be like, hey, if I get sick and die, I get sick and die, but let me go and have my library.
Fair enough, but at the same time, there's Amazon and you can order books. Hell,
Yeah,
Kristen went to the library
social
and borrowed
element
a
is what's
Kindle
important.
book.
Okay,
She borrowed a Kindle. Hang on. She borrowed a Kindle book from the public library,
that's fine.
and
yeah.
she has to return it.
I know. Isn't it funny?
What?
Hey,
the
my
fuck?
audiobooks from the public library system, man.
Even still, why do you have to bring it back? Can't you just send a termination code after 2 weeks?
In theory, yes, you can. I'm not sure what's up with that.
I'm just trying to figure that out, because why do you have to return a digital book that doesn't exist in the first place?
Correct. But here's the point I'm making is that with the young population, we need to pull all restrictions. If you want to run around with a mask, you enjoy yourself. I ain't gonna. Okay? The evidence isn't there. The science isn't there. The data's not there. Even the percentage of chance of me dying if I happen to get COVID, I'm okay with those odds. Because that 2.9% among the 40 to 49ers, I guarantee them are the porkers. Particularly, stop running around telling me to wear a mask when you can't stop eating your Big Macs and your burritos.
I like burritos.
I like burritos too. But when you're 100 pounds overweight, don't talk to me about wearing a mask. Your obesity is a bigger risk factor than me wearing or not wearing a mask.
Solid 80 pounds overweight.
Yeah. 80?
80, easily.
That's like, how much do you weigh?
230.
Dang, you got fat. I thought I was getting fat. I don't even know close to that.
I locked down, man. I've been drinking booze because, well, I'm locked down. There's not much else to do.
Well, that actually is what's driving a lot of the deaths among the age population that are younger, honestly.
Well, to be fair, if they're dying from drinking, it's because they're stupid.
Yeah, but it's suicides are way up. Deaths of despair are way up. Lots of other things are way up.
You know,
that have nothing to do with the virus.
I get that. They're like, oh, woe is me. Jesus. Even Ozzy said suicide is a temporary or a permanent solution to a very temporary problem. Well, and that was Ozzy Osbourne. Don't be killing yourselves, you stupid idiots. This will pass. As too will everything else.
All right.
The man who bit heads off of bats.
Yeah, Hey. He claims he did not bite the head off the bat. I mean,
no, he didn't. He absolutely said he did bite the head off the bat.
Well, okay. Correction. He did. It was unintentional because people were throwing rubber animals at him, and he thought it was a rubber animal. That's actually how it went down.
Well, yummy.
My apologies. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and Clinton didn't inhale.
Correct.
Sure.
And he certainly never flew on an airplane to an island somewhere. That's for sure.
Fair enough. Nor did half of the other any politicians.
I know. So that's my overall take.
Hey, we should do a thing on Maxine. Because frankly, she got arrested and we haven't heard nothing. She's not even dead yet. What's going on?
She's probably dead.
Oh, man, she might be. We haven't heard anything about her.
I know, right? I know. Looking at the COVID stuff, though, if we're running a talk about following the science, the mask mandates tend to hurt us rather than help us. This is not a disease that affects the regular people.
Caveat that the mask mandates tend to hurt us because people aren't using them well.
Not even that, though, because the scientific research looking at the masks themselves, there is no reason to wear a mask. Because the other factor that we didn't talk about is you are putting something around your face that is restricting airflow.
I'll go out and say I'm good for about 30 minutes with a mask on. After that, it has to come off my face because I can't breathe.
Correct. But here's the thing.
And that's because I have
wearing a mask
issues all of my life, not because there's some psychological issue. I literally can't breathe.
Yeah,
that's
here's the
about
thing.
it.
when
I'm
you're
good for it.
wearing a mask, you are putting bacteria, you're putting viruses, you're basically producing a growth chamber for bacteria, viruses, and other crap on your face,
That's
allowing
all
them.
restaurants are.
Yeah.
They
But
are
here's the thing.
for
You
fucking
need some of that. You need to spread some of your viruses to each other. You need to spread some of that bacteria to each other. You need to do that. That is
Fair
what
enough.
is healthy.
But I'm going to tell you that restaurants are a hotbed for nasty. Just
Well,
straight up
find me
nasty. If
the
you can catch it, you're
data.
going to get it.
Find me the data where COVID spreads in restaurants. I have a news flash. It doesn't exist.
Oh,
They've
I'm
done
sure
studies.
there's
They
some,
can't find
but
it.
not much.
They can't find it.
And a lot of stuff is being just whitewashed over.
No.
Liability claims.
No, understand this. Understand this. If any shred of evidence possibly were to come out, the news media would be all over it because that's what they do.
Here
They're
in
into
town
fear porn.
that was COVID positive, but they wouldn't release the name of the place because they said they were following all of the guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
But even following all of the guidelines, they still spread COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
if that's a local issue, that's fine. That's what you'll see. But what I'm saying is when this type of stuff occurs, the media will jump all over it because they are interested in fear porn because that's what causes the response that they want.
Well, the response that they want is more advertising dollars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that they want to drive fear, it's that they want the advertising dollars. And sensational headlines provide that shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, I'm not trying to contract it, be asymptomatic, and then take it to mom, and she dies.
Again, the asymptomatic spread is insignificant.
In some cases, but I have that kind of bad luck.
Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
No, it's pretty bad.
But here's the thing, though. Are we going to live in fear, locking down? Are you willing to lock down in your house forever?
I'm willing to lock down in my house for 45 straight days, and I can do it. Go ahead. Close the door. We're good, baby. We can do it literally right now, and I'm straight. I'm going to get a little bit pissed off when my bottle of booze runs empty, but again, I'm bored. I got laid off in March. I ain't got much else to do.
Yeah, I'm choosing not to live my life in fear. I don't intentionally go into crowds of people where I'm going to cause some mass issue. But at the same time, don't sit there and tell me what I have to do as far as what I'm wearing, what I'm not wearing, things like that, because the science is not there. The science is not there. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's true, Tom, but you have to understand that the science is no longer being taught in school. They're kind of blowing it over for,
I'm not talking about what's in school. I'm talking about we covered statistics from
general population.
Stop. No. I'm talking.
Go ahead.
We are looking at the data. We're looking at the scientific literature. We're looking at Annals of Internal Medicine. We're looking at Nature magazine. We're looking at actual real scientific studies from actual real scientists actually doing this. We're not talking about the fundamentals of education, and American education is screwed up. I'm with you on that. What I'm talking about is if we're talking about let's follow the science suggests COVID is not a problem for the general population. We need to open things back up and get on with life and protect just the elderly. That's what we need to do. Go ahead.
True. But because we have dumbed down and lowered the bar so far educationally, science is stupid. No, Jethro, you're stupid. And that's why you need to look at the science. I can't understand half these words. That's 1 + 1, Jethro. You need to get the fuck with it.
Yeah.
The problem is people don't care about the science. They care about the emotion. And that's really our biggest issue right here.
Yeah. And what do we need to do about that then? We need to get up and we need to start living our lives again. That's how you're going to overcome that emotion.
I haven't really stopped living my life. In my particular case, I got furloughed, but frankly, Probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me because honestly, I haven't had a vacation in 12 years and I'm just taking all 39 weeks of it right now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are not in your situation.
Well, I know.
A lot of people are prevented by governments, not because of COVID, by governments from living their lives. And that's what we need to do. We need to get back to live our lives and accept the fact that life itself has risk and accept that the best we can do is be as careful as we can be, but we're not going to stop a virus, nor is this virus going to stop most people.
Yep. No, I'm right there with you. Most people aren't going to get killed by this, just by the numbers. However, still, by the numbers, that's a significant amount, enough to scare people.
Mm-hmm.
Even me right now, I do have respiratory issues. And that just makes me frightened because I know this is a respiratory disease.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom, I'm not comfortable with dropping myself, especially into a restaurant work environment, because everybody's close. Every time I get sick, it's because somebody was sick at my restaurant.
Well, I mean, there's an advantage I have, or it's easy for me to do that because I've worked for myself at home for the last 10 years. You know?
Exactly. So right now, what you're talking is there's restaurants everywhere and nobody fucking cooks. The sick people are going there. The healthy people are going there. The old people are going there. The young people are going there. Everybody's going there because everybody needs
But here's
to
the
eat.
point. Here's the point, though. Asymptomatic spread in the scientific literature does not generally happen.
That's true.
Not happening.
Asymptomatic spread does not generally happen.
Symptomatic spread.
We're talking about
16%.
restaurants, and if people get sick at a restaurant, Tom, if the workers get sick at a restaurant, if they call off, they're getting fired, so they're coming in.
Yeah, that's not an issue with coronavirus. That's an issue with the needs handled on the political level. Good luck with that one. I mean, really, it ain't going to happen. But that's not COVID. COVID is not causing that. That's what my point is. We are just about in an hour, so we should probably think about wrapping this guy up.
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up now. I don't think we really went anywhere one way or the other with this one either. I'm in agreement with most of it, but at the same time, I'm willing to wear a mask because people are frightened. And frightened people are fucking stupid.
Yeah. Well, when we have enough people that don't wear masks and we find that, nothing tends to happen. Like this is a good one here. I didn't pull the articles up on it, but the Sturgis rally, right? So South Dakota's like, we don't really care. And frankly, sure that people are saying like they have the highest growth rate of the virus. Yeah, they went up from like 25 to 27 people got it. Okay, that's a high rate for South Dakota. But they had the Sturgis rally come in, and there's like, I forget the exact number, but it's into the thousands of motorcyclists coming on into take over the town of Sturgis, right? And you think that these hardy motorcycle dudes are wearing masks and social distancing? Nope, not at all. They found a possible like 3 or 4 cases that came for that. Now, some people are saying it caused over 500 deaths. No, actually, if you look at the actual scientific data that we have, they tracked a couple small cases to it. That's
either way.
That's the thing I'm talking about.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, the point is, wherever things are open, there's no change over wherever things are closed down. So you may as well open up and let people have their livelihood.
Fair enough.
And you can do what you can do you. That's fine. But give me the freedom to do me. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not saying you don't have the freedom. I'm just saying wear a mask.
Part of the freedom is to not wear it because it's scientifically not effective. It doesn't prevent a spread. It tends to increase a spread, and there's dangerous aspects to it.
It does cover up your giant nose.
Well, maybe that. Is it big? Look at that profile. Yeah.
I can't really say anything. It covers up my giant nose too.
Yeah, I'm not self-conscious about my nose.
Well, right. You should be. Wear a mask.
No, not happening.
All right, Tom, I love you, little brother.
You too, man. Where can I find more about you, man?
You can find me over on Twitch TV/Mavis Games. You can find me on Facebook/Mavis Games. In fact, if you just type in basically Mavis Games to Google, you're gonna find something about me somewhere, probably. I don't even know. I wonder what I rank. Hang on. Let me go ahead and pull up. I'm just gonna type in Mavis Games and see what pops up. So let's see here, Mavis Games, and boom. Oh, how about if I the first thing that pops up is Twitch.
There you go.
Oh wait, no. First thing that pops up is mavisgames.com. Second thing that pops up is Twitch. Third is Facebook. So if you Google Mavis Games, you'll find I am the first
page.
Basically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 entries. And then somebody has Mavis Gaming, and they can go screw themselves. And that's on Instagram. I don't even have Instagram.
Interesting. All right.
And then I also have the next one. Let's just find local Mavis Games. Oh, that's local businesses. Find local. Yep. LinkedIn.
There you go.
You'll see me pop up. I'm Tim Morosky, owner of Mavis Games.
Right.
Creative director for Trader Chronicles Online. Currently building an MMORPG.
There we go. All right. You can find me
and
on
Tom,
YouTube.
Where can we find you?
YouTube at Switch to Linux or at Our Walking Christ. We're also just now rolling out channels on Rumble. I'm also on BitChute. Switch to Linux or Our Walking Christ. And once again, just type in those things onto any search engine. I would not recommend Google, but any search engine will do. You should find me over there. So we'll see you next time, Tim.
I'll see you later, Tom. Good night.